The beginning years were very intense. Sifu came from China, and she studied in a professional atmosphere. She was a professional performer. So she had that intensity, and it was a different time too. Many of the students were young. They were extremely interested in this, and they could come and really spend 2 or 3 evenings a week here reliably. So there was just a lot of drive from Sifu and a really strong desire to learn and time from the students. And some people really achieved wonderful things. Even in those days, people came with different backgrounds. I mean, some people had studied a hard style like karate. Some people had done gymnastics. And so there were some people who brought a great deal into the school, and they were able to do, you know, the wonderful high kicks and the spinning kicks, and that was a thrill. Well, I think there were pronounced differences, because what Sifu brought was just a solid grounding in the older forms, as well as a familiarity with Wushu, a more systematic way of studying, and also a more health and performance-oriented thing. And I think because she was, you know, young, at the top of the world, and was bringing something new, and so some of these people were envious. I think Sifu very smart about this, and realized she was coming into a community and that there would be difficulties, and I think she worked hard to show some respect to these people. So, I mean, I remember one old teacher who was very envious, but she invited him to the school. He could watch a class, and certainly she made friends with many of the other teachers. And I was very happy because I just appreciated the systematic way that Sifu taught, breaking out the stances, emphasis on waist, the exercise turning. The exercise class really helped studying technique. There was always something that kept me moving forward. I mean, Tai Chi was good. I found Bakwa very hard. But one day I decided I'm going to take a sword class, or Sifu encouraged me to. And it was the hardest hour I've ever spent in my life. We had to, among other things, do those exercises where you hold the sword out in 9 different positions here for 30 seconds or more. And I thought, I may get through this hour, but I'm never going to do this again. And in the end, I really came to enjoy sword. And in some way, it's the best form for me. I think people enjoyed seeing me perform it, and I just love doing it. Yeah, I'm not always comfortable on stage, but when things were going well, it felt very good. And I think if you're performing, it does up the ante. You want to do it better. Without a doubt, you put more into it. And every now and then there could be just tremendous warmth between the audience and the performers, and I think some were very happy to be part of it. And in a way, it's not quite the same thing as just being in a martial arts movie, but it was part of that world, a little bit of that feeling. I mean, the first thing anybody knows about your mother is that be strong.
Did she say that to you a lot?
Well, you could just tell that. and you quickly learn if things go wrong, keep going. Do you know what I mean? And just because somebody does something doesn't mean you have to hit back in the same direction. You could step to the side, you can deflect, you can choose your response. And I think, you know, over time it gives you a certain kind of relaxation, a certain kind of confidence, and ability to choose your responses to situations. And I felt like we all meet people who are petty tyrants in our life, and I felt like I got a much better ability to deal with them over time. She knew just what to say. But I think with other people, she just could read their body language and what they were going to do, and what people said was secondary. She just had a remarkable ability to do that. I think your father was just wonderful because he had his own business to run, but he supported the school 110%. I mean, he shared the office, he took photographs, and he traipsed around all over the place and put up with the students. I mean, I think at times they did disagree, and because they're husband and wife, and because Sifu was our Sifu, and we respect your father very much too, we tended to look the other way and say that, you know, it's a wonderful marriage and they'll work it out. There were just two conflicting things because, I mean, when Sifu was teaching a class, she could seem relentless. And sometimes people would joke and we'd say, why did we come in here every week to be tortured like this? I don't know, what are we, all crazy? But in a certain sense, Sifu knew that you weren't going to get the full benefit of it if you didn't do it right, and there's no point in wasting time in life. So in a way, it's like being the tough teacher, which we all appreciated. It's really in the benefit of the student. So that gigantic contradiction just seemed to sort of vanish in retrospect. In 1992, Sifu wanted to go out to the West Coast. She wanted to see if she could get some funding and some interest in the Wushu theater out there from the TV stations. And she wanted to visit some of the people that helped her when she first came to the country and was in San Francisco, which would have been 20 years before that, I think. And we visited a number of schools because Sifu didn't want to be there just to favor one person. And unfortunately, some of the people who had been fairly old when she got there weren't always in the best of health. And I think maybe it was a Sunday morning, but we didn't have much to do, so Sifu and I went shopping, and she was thinking about one of the older teachers who wasn't in the best of health, and she said, you know, life's not very long. She said, if you're 50, then you're 60, then you're 70, and then you're dead. And I said, Sifu, don't say that to me. Today's my birthday. and she laughed. Well, we did some shopping, and we were in a nice clothing store, and I was looking at a blue silk shirt, which I kind of liked, and she said, oh, that's not the right size for you, put it back. And then she said, go outside. So I don't know, she thinks this is hopeless. So I went outside. So, 10 minutes later, she came out, and she got the right size shirt, and she gave it to me for my birthday, and I just really appreciated that. I'll tell you a funny memory. I mean, you were going around the school, and you were getting in everybody's way because you were bored, and I didn't know what to say, and I said, oh, and you were making a lot of noise, so I said, well, Chi-Ching, why don't you pretend you're a butterfly? And so you stopped talking, and what was great is you did the most wonderful imitation of a butterfly I've ever seen. It was just a kind of a charming moment that you can have with very young kids. You just enjoyed it and did it. When Chi-Ching was in the school, everybody was charmed. Your mother taught more than any other of the masters. I mean, she, taught maybe 6 days a week, 2 or 3 classes over years and years. I just don't think many people ever worked that hard. She brought a tremendous amount of energy into the classroom, and some people, and I especially mean myself, would sometimes come in here after a tough day at work and be a little tired, and just sort of rely on Sifu's energy to lift us up. And I kind of wished it were a little different. I wish I could have come in here at 10 a.m. in the morning. Talking about energy level, I remember I went to Switzerland with her and Jean the first time she taught a seminar at Cornelius School in La Chaux-de-Fonds, and she just was just this torrent of energy for about 8 hours a day for 2 days in a row, and just sort of carried these whole students along. It was incredible. I do think it was too much, and that's what I was alluding to earlier. I mean, I think we all just thought of her as indestructible, or just we didn't think it was our job to tell her to take a vacation, if you know what I mean, and maybe there would have been a time for that, and it's just hard to say when that time was. We relied on her for a certain amount of strength. If she were feeling tired or something, she would never let you see it. I felt sometimes too much was on her and that somehow students should have done more without being able to say how that would have been easy. Well, I think the year was 1977 or 78. I was very, very new to the school, and frankly, I had the energy to drive down to New York and back in the same day. And it was a different time too, because New York was a little bit on the down and out, and you got cheap parking there and everything else. And I think it was a September or October day. It was a slightly humid autumn day. And the performance was in a park near Chinatown or Greenwich Village, and the masters came out and did their performs, and they were all interesting, and I mean the people belonged up there, but I just, one of the masters did it, and there was just a little bit of this in it, and when Sifu did it, somebody shouted, "How!" And it was just, everybody realized that she was #1 that day. She really stood out, and I don't think they knew who she was either. I think there may have been one other female. Her name was Sophia. Delza. She wrote some books. She had studied in China and so forth and so on. And she did know some Tai Chi. And she was a very early person who, grew up as a Westerner, but did learn some Tai Chi and stuff like that. She got nowhere. I think Judy did just something like raise her hand behind Sifu's back, and Sifu just brushed it away without even looking. I think I mentioned sometimes people were, with a strong polemical bent, a strong political mind would come in here, and I don't think that wasn't what Sifu was about. She was a very generous teacher, and I don't think she ever refused to meet a student of whatever level they were when they walked in the door. And there was an older woman there who just didn't have the energy to go through the whole thing, so she stopped by and helped the woman do something in a chair, and then told her when to take a break. And there was this room full of strangers, and there she was seeing each one of an individual and trying to give them what they needed. It was great. Two things to stand out. I certainly think her sword was just terrific. And even that, when I was telling you about that envious man when she first came here, he didn't like the way she did wave cloud hands and stuff like that. He said, but her sword was very good. I just don't think I've ever seen anybody that's come close. Her Tai Chi was wonderful, and I think Long Yi meant a lot to her because she was there when it was developed. She had a wonderful sense of humor. It was very sly, and I don't think people often understood it. And one day, Sifu really got the best of them. It was so funny because the delivery was so deadpan. But Sifu had performed at the Brattle Theater, which is a movie theater, and it's seldom, if ever, used for performance. And they were just discussing the performance and how it went. And it was very dusty back there. And she said, "Oh, very, very dirty, very dusty." And David said, "Well, I liked it." She said, "Oh, you like the dust, David?" I couldn't deliver it the way she did, but it was just like, she really got him. It's a line that every student of Shakespeare knows, tiger heart wrapped in woman's hide. She really had a big tiger heart, big spirit. She still does. I'll sum it up. I hope I've said it before, but Sifu was tremendously generous to all of us, and I think we all have a lifelong debt to her, and we're very loyal, always will be. I think I have one lifetime and one Sifu, and that's Bow Sim Mark.